Sorry, Los Angeles. Sorry, San Francisco. Some technical difficulties. Nothing new for us here at K&L. We've got we're going to start back again with the Trudon Rosé, and we were just having a little discussion about malolactic and how nowadays people have become so much more flexible and less dogmatic about malolactic. And since this is 100% Meunier, he decided to only do 30% mallow on it. This is 93% of Meunier vinified white, and then 7% Meunier vinified dark red blended together for this wine. And the plot that the red wine comes from is over 60 years old. Yeah, so you can see it's a pretty color. Not too much, doesn't seem to be corked. Neil, do the honors.
Thank you, sir.
I might be repeating myself, but it used to be very, 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 something that people hung their hats on, whether they did or did not do mallow in Champagne, because historically you could not really afford to allow the mallow to start, because it used to be that almost all the harvest started in October. So you can imagine the temperature is dropping. You've got your primary fermentation. Your primary fermentation hopefully makes it through before the cold weather comes. But it used to be a problem that's the reason that bottles used to blow up so often, is because they would taste the wines and think that they were dry in the spring because the acidity would be so high it would cover up the RS. They'd add their 24 grams of sugar and their yeast, but lo and behold, there was an extra 3 grams in the wine. All of a sudden, too much for the bottle to take. Boom! Shattered glass everywhere. The guys used to wear steel masks down in the caves because the bottles used to blow up. So mallow used to be a risk. I mean, you couldn't hope to start it and finish it. And then if you tried to start it and it didn't finish it, and it went through the mallow in the bottle, all of a sudden you got unsaleable brown champagne. Well, now you could sell it to hipsters. You just call it natty. Back in the day, that would have been unmarketable. But now, mallow became extremely popular in Champagne because it was a way of cutting the brutal edge of acidity off and maybe allowing a high quality product to be sold after 3 years on the lees instead of 4. But now the heat has become so extreme in Champagne that even people who for generations never ever blocked mallow, now they're starting to block it to preserve every bit of acidity they can. How did the rosé show?
Those Trudon wines are awesome. Really, really good across the board.
Oh yeah, I really, there's like a little bit of some red wine depth to that, which I really quite like without losing freshness. So the next producer we have is the only one on here that's not DI, and we're getting these through Plume Ridge, who are the same people that sell us the Cellars Dauphin Rhone. And they just really, they're basically offering us a price that's like DI without having the quantity commitments, so
Well, that doesn't suck.
it doesn't suck at all. So currently, I think that this is one of our most reasonably priced champagnes. It's $29.99 on the shelf. It's all estate. It's 3 years on the lees. It's 60 Meunier, 30 Pinot Noir, and 10 Chardonnay, and a massive 60% reserves. So really, really, really high percentage of older wines included in the blend. They might have economized a little bit on the tab there on the side of the bottle. No, that's me. That was me. That wasn't them. This is good quality. So they call this Gianni Poré on the bottom. They call it by Gianni Poré. And the reason is that this, like so many other grower estates, is the product of a marriage. So the husband's part of the family is in Sacy, and the wife's part of the family is in Écueil. And this is all from the Sacy half of the family. So they wanted to sort of keep the identity of the two estates alive by offering one in the style of the husband's family, or a range in the style of the husband's family and a range in the style of the wife's family. And I'll show you these because this is a really interesting part of Champagne, and it's called the Petit Menton. So there's an area between Reims and Epernay here with a lot of Premier crus. And so there's Écueil here, and then the neighboring village is Sacy right here. And so basically this is right off the road that goes between Reims and Epernay, and is to the west rather than the east of the main road. So to the east you have all the Grand Crus of the Menton de Reims, and to the west you have what they call the Petit Menton. Strangely enough, having ridden my bike on both the Petit Menton and the Grand Menton, the Grand Menton is lower and less steep. The one that they call the small one is definitely the harder hills over there. So $29.99, and quite good margin. I think our purchase price is $20, so not super expensive. And speaking of deals, these guys, they do a special club, which is cheaper than any DI special club that we've ever had. $50, which, most of the special club bottlings in the market, 100 would be a cheap one. So the special club is a group of about 25 growers that all got together and decided that they were going to put their highest end cuvee all in the same bottle. So you could get like a marketing effect. And in order to call it a special club, it has to pass a jury of peers. So everybody in the special club has to taste the base wine, the Vin Clair, and then decide whether it's good enough or not. The producers that are in the club will also have to agree that the club will always be the highest end bottling that they release. So what you get whenever you see a special club, even if you don't know who the producer is, I'm here to promise you, cross my heart, promise you that you're going to be getting top quality grower stuff every time you buy a special club. The downside of it is I can't tell you what the style is going to be at all. And that's why some producers like Lamois are now leaving the special club to do their own thing, because there is a bit of a marketing advantage to doing it in the club because of the uniformly high quality. But the downside is that people are confused to the style. So you could have incisive zero dosage Blanc de Blanc from one producer as a special club, incredible quality, and a super round, oxidative, rich Meunier from another producer. And so the only thing that the special club guarantees you is quality. It doesn't tell you anything about the style. In order to figure out the style, you have to sort of guess from the village or just know the producer. So this wine is also has another important subject attached to it, and that subject is 2015. So 2015 has been getting very, very big write-ups from the press, but it is the warmest vintage. Well, it was the warmest vintage of all time in Champagne up to that point, until 2018 caught it and passed it. And it produces wines that are in a style for vintage that are unprecedented. I would say even vintages like 03, which was very, 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 very hot, or 76, which was very, 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 very hot. Just, they're not as crazy warm as 15 was. And one of the things I really like about this one is that it's avoided harsh green character, because a lot of the stuff is got shut down from the heat. But one of the things that confuses me about tasting 15s is high minerality from chalky soil with low acid. And that confuses my easy to confuse simpleton palate.
I don't think this comes off as a hot vintage. It seems like it really more balanced.
Yeah.
Certainly get that minerality in there.
Yeah, it's salty, huh?
Yeah, it's
really
kind
salty.
of half and half,
Yeah.
front and back, boom, boom.
Yeah, super salty. But cool wine, $50. You know, people might ask, like, how's it gonna age? You know, 76 is aged well. 03s, not so much. You know, I'm much more confident about the 14s for keeping them. You know, they're just a little bit more of previous evidence to go on there. So this one, the final one from Juménil, is their rosé, and they call this Rosé Vieille Vigne. And the reason they call it Rosé Vieille Vigne is the small amount of Meunier red wine in the blend, you know, around 7%, is made from a plot planted in 1956. So as we were talking about, one of those old Massals, and the base of the wine's a third, and a third. So third Chardonnay, third Meunier, third Pinot Noir. And this is all primarily from Écueil on the wife's side of the vineyard holdings. I love it. I mean, this, to me, this just like pops with fresh bread. It's about 3 years on the lease. Now you can see from the corks here, we've got, what is that? I've got 3 with the old school natural corks so far, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the modern Medic, you know, what do they call this, a conglomeration, or I had a friend in the cork business, and she said, I shouldn't be allowed to call them corks because there's more glue than there is cork. But definitely lower incidence of cork taint with those. So what do you guys think? $35?
Yeah, very like Celine.
One of the things that's really interesting with 15 and 18 is on the non-vintage front, you know, it used to be that almost always when you pulled from your reserves, you were pulling from your reserves to add richness. But now people are realizing that you need to pull from your reserves to add freshness too. So that's one of the main reasons that Roederer created that, the collection 242. They have a Solera, which is you know, non-malolactic and also selected for higher acid wines, because they're, you know, Jean-Baptiste Lecaillon, the cellar master of Roederer, says that Champagne used to be a fight for ripeness, Fargo, North Dakota, Winnipeg, Canada latitude, but now it's a fight for freshness. So oftentimes now the reserve wines are being tapped for acid and not for richness. So moving along, we got a really cool pair from a brand new producer to our DI program, Romain Tribou, and he wanted to do an example of very high quality Chardonnay and very high quality Meunier, Chardonnay Meunier, to compare. So we're going to start off, both of these are 70% barrel fermented, and, you know, just made entirely out of Cuvée, the first press, and done intentionally on a quite high level to really highlight the differences between the two grapes. So the first one, the pure Chardonnay, this is from the Grand Crus of Cremont and Chuy, which are two of the northern Grand Crus on the Côte de Blanc. So again, dead east facing, and very, very, very chalky spots there in the Côte de Blanc. Seems good. Oh yeah. And I'll show you guys on the map. So you've got Epernay here, sort of people oftentimes will describe the Marne, the main part of Champagne, as being like a cork. You know, you can see sort of the top of the cork here, and then, or the sides here, and then the stem here, or like a mushroom. And the stem of the mushroom, or the bottom part of the cork, is the Côte de Blanc. And the Côte de Blanc is just blessed with, you know, this perfect terroir, which is pure Belemnita chalk. So if you go walking around here, you can just fill your pockets up with all sorts of fossilized shellfish from when this was all a seabed 150 million years ago. And it faces dead east, so it catches that morning sun. Steep slopes, east face, Belemnita chalk. It's just absolutely perfect for growing Chardonnay and making Blanc de Blanc there. The Champenois have lots of jokes about the people from the Côte de Blanc because they say they're all rich, you know. Certainly the first time I saw a Tesla in Champagne, it was it was in Ménil. It was in the Côte de Blanc. You know, it's Delphine Brulez from Louise Brison, you know, says that it's just like making wine in the Côte de Blanc. If you can't make good wine there, you should just quit. It's just, she says it's just so easy with that fruit to make just brilliant stuff. And a lot of them have said that lately they're losing money by making their own wine because the grape prices are so high now that, but of course, they also know that if you sell all your grapes, then the negociant holds all the cards, and you know it's not going to be that way forever. So you're safer to make your own wine. So the next one, the Pure Meunier, is from Romain Tribu's hometown, Cormoncey, which is in the Grand Valley of the Marne. And I'll show you here on the map. It's just next to Ovier and Cumières, and really this is a blend of 4 villages. So it has Romery in there, but also Cumières, Ovier, and Fleury-la-Rivière. So some of the best terroir from Meunier. And again, 70% barrel. So for me, it's really interesting. Look, big houses will poo-poo Meunier. Big houses pay less money for Meunier. They pay a premium for Chardonnay, they pay the normal price for Pinot Noir, and there's a penalty on Meunier. To me, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because oftentimes growers that have a certain plot of land that they're going to make champagne off of, those growers will almost always plant more Meunier than a grower that's just in the business of selling grapes. Because Meunier is often the thing that makes the best wine. Meunier is very, very well suited to the environment in Champagne because it buds very late. It's from there and knows not to come out too early and get snapped by the frost. It also has a strong contrabud. So even if it does get frosted, you still get a crop, which is not the case with Chardonnay or Pinot Noir. So on the map, you have Epernay here, and then Romery is right here, just up from Cumières and Ovier. And then there's Fleury La Riviere, where some of the other grapes in this little blend come from. I also think that it loves barrel fermentation. The first barrel fermented Meunier that we ever had here was from René Collard, who's the grandfather of grower champagne and one of the very first growers to go it on his own back in the middle of the war, World War II. But Krug, it's interesting that Krug and Biacart are the two big houses that are the biggest proponents of Meunier. And Krug, of course, they always barrel ferment it. And when you get good quality Meunier and you put it in barrel, it can be a real special thing. Yeah, real neutral old oak though, as you can see. The wines are not oaky tasting. This one also happens to be all 2018, while the Chardonnay one was all 2016. And please, I love staff reviews, but don't put the vintage bases of non-vintage wines in staff reviews, because there's no way when the new one comes out, I have customers say, is this really still 2002? Because I made the mistake. And there's just we don't make a new SKU every time a new batch of non-vintage comes in. We just keep the same old SKU. So, it's best to keep that sort of thing out of staff reviews. And speaking of staff reviews, we only got 2 more wines to go. If anybody wants to review all 12 of these, I got a couple bottles of champagne for you. And if you say to yourself like, wow, but Gary, that's sort of cheating because I've already done staff reviews on 4 of these. That's not cheating. Just go in there, take a period out, add a period back in, hit save so it's got the fresh date on it. Good enough for me. You already did the work. So take my samples off me, people, please. And then for the last ones, we have our 2 from Biacart Saint-Amand, which is our oldest relationship at K&L, predates my 22 years here. As a matter of fact, Clyde was great friends with Francois, the father, and now I'm dealing with the son, Mathieu Roland Biacart. So it's a nice long relationship. I'm sorry, I'm running a little late. I'm gonna pick it up. So this is 40 Meunier, 40 Chardonnay, and 20 Pinot. And the big innovation at Biacart Saint-Amand is back in the 50s, they had a German brewer in the family. And they started to do very, very cold fermentation. So almost like a lagering of wine. And that has allowed them to keep super, super freshness in the wines, and really endeared them to many customers for having this very, very bright style, with very, 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 with yeast that's accustomed to low temperatures and slow fermentations. The Rosé, which is probably the big category killer of Rosé, sort of the benchmark for all of our customers for Rosé, is done with an addition of about 7% red wine, all only from Pinot Noir from one village, their village, Marolles-sur-Ailly. And this one is 40% Chardonnay, 40% Pinot Noir, and 20% Meunier. They have a separate facility for the vinification of the red wines, where they do submerged cap fermentation, a lot like what they do at Ridge. It's the only place where I've seen it in Champagne. Well, anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed the tasting.
Thank you, Gary.
And
Thank you.
good luck today on the floor.